Welcome, everyone. I decided to do this live today because I it was something that I really felt like need to be discussed. If you have not seen the recent news, it's all over social media. Ray J and Brandy's mother had to be taken to the hospital after receiving IV hydration. There's also another news headline where a woman in Texas had to be taking. Well, actually, I'm sorry. She passed away after receiving IV hydration, and this happened in Texas at a med spa. So I really thought that I needed to have this conversation to talk about these two incidents, just because I know a lot of people who do receive IV hydration have heard about these incidents and they're kind of scared. And so I felt like we need to have this discussion as far as, is IV hydration safe? So let's first start with talking about Brandy and Ray J's mother. So there's not a lot of details centered around what really happened. I do know that what I have read through TMZ, they're saying that IV hydration is not safe. It can put you at risk of air emboli. They also said something about there's a risk of infection, there's a risk of a rash, all of these things. And I wanted to touch on a little bit of that because I've read these things and I'm like, this need to be discussed. So as far as Ray J and Brandy's mom, we don't know all the facts. I do know from what I have read. Again, this is all what I've read online, so I don't know full details. But what I have read is that she had actually received IV hydration. She wasn't feeling well after she completed the IV hydration, and then she had to go to the hospital. She was cleared by a medical provider and sent home. So they're not saying what could have caused her to not feel well. Now, from my understanding, I believe she got dizzy, just wasn't feeling well. So they're not really saying what caused this. But what I did read was she got an IV drip. She had vitamin B. It was some vitamin C, magnesium, and I believe it also says she had some calcium as well. So just reading that, typically those things are safe. So when I read it, only thing I could think of could possibly, and this is all speculation, I don't know full details, is there could have possibly been some underlying going on with their mom, and coincidentally she got IV drip. Again, I don't know, but there's not a lot of facts centered around what could have possibly happened and caused her to have this incident after she received the IV drip. Now, the next incident was the lady in Texas. So the lady in Texas, it's unfortunate, and my prayers is really with her family. I hate that this happened to her. She actually went into a med spa and received IV hydration. But there was another detail because before I read up on this, I seen the headlines. I was working that day, and I just so happened was scrolling on social media, and I read the headlines, and it said Texas woman dies after receiving IV hydration at a med spa. So of course, when I seen that, I was alarmed. I didn't get a chance to really do a lot of digging at the time, but it was alarming for me because that's something that I do. And IV hydration is very low risk. It's a low risk service. So it was kind of like, okay, I need to do more digging to see what's more what more happened in this, or could have possibly happened. And one thing about the media, they will take something and blow it up. The media will take an incident, they will blow it up, and they don't always have all the facts. So we don't really have a lot of the facts with this lady as well. But what I do know is, not only, if you read up on this incident, not only did this lady receive IV hydration, so she got some vitamin C and she got some vitamin B in her IV drip, she also got what's called TPN. TPN stands for Total Parental Nutrition. So TPN, you typically see that in a hospital setting. It's typically being given in a hospital a hospital setting, because it's something that has to be monitored. um, TPN is also it's only given to people who can't eat. So if you can't eat anything by mouth, and if you're not a candidate for a feeding tube, because maybe your stomach, your gut has to rest, or maybe you have something going on in your gut to where you're not properly able, your body's not properly able to process the food and digest like you need to. So you're not a candidate to eat by mouth, and you're not a candidate for a feeding tube. The next thing will be to provide TPN, and it's given via IV. With TPN is very, very you have to have strict orders. So you get the orders from a medical provider, you also get orders from nutritionists and dietitian and a pharmacist. All three of these people are very, very important with creating this bag of TPN, because the doctor has to put their order in, the nutritionist and dietitian has to make sure that it's made up properly to where this person is getting the electrolytes and the nutrients that they need. And then also you have this is all, it's a big process before you can even give this to the patient or give it to anyone. And typically you also have to do labs every day. So labs are pretty much done every day. They do a lab draw because they're checking for your electrolytes and everything to make sure that they're properly giving the person what they really need. Because again, remember, they're not eating or drinking. So this is their way of getting their nutrients. So this lady got this type of, she received TPN in a med spa setting. Again, there's not a lot of facts of what's going on. They haven't released anything else besides what I'm telling you now, and you can read up on it. It is public knowledge. You can read up on everything that I'm talking about. But what they are saying, that they're speculating, and this is all speculation, that she could possibly pass because of the potassium and chloride that is found in TPN. So there is potassium and chloride that's in TPN, because remember I said it's all electrolytes, because when you're not eating and drinking, you're not getting what you need. And when you get your lab work, they are adjusting the amount of electrolytes they're putting into the bag to make sure they're not overloading you with too much or not giving you enough. And if that's the case, that possibly what could have happened, she could have went into cardiac arrest because of she had too much potassium, and it probably was ran at a fast rate, in which you're supposed to be given TPN. So, the doctor who's the medical provider, the facility or the med spa, I should say, was actually owned by a non-licensed person. This non-licensed person, so in the state of Texas, a non-licensed person, from my understanding, can own a med spa, but they have to have a medical director, which is a doctor, and they also have to have medical personnel working. So that's a registered nurse, probably a nurse practitioner, someone that's have a medical background has to be on board working in that med spa. And from my understanding, the lady who owned the med spa was non-licensed, and she also was the person who gave the IV drip. So the medical director is under a lot of hot water. His license is suspended right now. They're investigating the med spa because there was not proper orders and procedures and policy put into place. So the reason why I'm going live is because, IV hydration is safe. It's low risk. It's very low risk. There's tons of evidence out there that says that IV hydration is safe. What makes it unsafe is when you go into clinics or facilities, or med spas, I should say. I'm sorry, not clinics, facility, but when you go into med spas or receive a IV lounge, and you're not getting the service provided by a licensed provider or someone who is supposed to be doing it. Whenever you go to an IV lounge or a med spa, another thing is, if the person is not licensed, you're supposed to be getting evaluated and assessed by a medical provider. And that could be, and it's called a good faith exam. The good faith exam is supposed to be done by a nurse practitioner, a physician, or a physician assistant. If you have not ever been evaluated by a nurse practitioner, physician assistant, or a medical doctor, then that's a red flag. Because because at the end of the day, yes, it's safe and it's low risk, but it's also considered a medication, and you are supposed to be evaluated, because there are some people who are not candidate for these IV drips. And that is where the medical provider comes in hand, because they are the ones who are going to assess this person, go over the medical history. They're going to go over medications, allergies, to make sure that they are a candidate for IV hydration. So if you're going somewhere and that person is not a medical provider, please don't go. If you're going somewhere and that person, or if they are not a medical provider, because again, every state have their own rules and regulations. So if you go to someone who is not licensed, but they have a registered nurse, well, even if they have a registered nurse, you still should be being seen by a nurse practitioner, a physician assistant, or a medical provider, a medical doctor. If you're not being seen by any of those people, that's a red flag. Do not go. I'm just being honest. Also, ask questions. Never, never be afraid to ask people questions about their license. Where did they go to school? If they're certified to do it, how long they've been doing it. You can ask these questions and it's okay. If anyone ever have a problem with you asking these questions, that's a red flag, because you should be able to ask these type of questions. And actually, I want you, me personally, when people come in to receive a service at my med spa, I want them to ask me these questions. I want them to ask whoever works there these questions, because it makes me feel good to know that you're asking the proper questions and that you really care about your health and what's going on. So we have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, and we have to make sure we're asking the proper questions. Never be afraid to ask. So, all in all, my question for this topic was, or one thing that I asked was, is IV hydration safe? Yes, IV hydration is safe. But like I said, it is not safe when you go to someone who is not licensed and not qualified to do it. So just make sure that you're asking the proper questions and you're going to the correct people to have these type of services done. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below. You can also send me an email at info@serenebeautywellness.com and I can answer those questions. You can also give me a call. I love to chat. Or you can send me a text. That number is 234-280-2550. Ask me whatever questions you want to ask. Good night, everyone. And again, always verify and ask questions. Thank you.